Hail and welcome! My name is Sierra Cassidy, and I am a Canadian smut author here to educate and entertain smut writers and readers. Today, I've got some book recommendations for you. The first one that I read was Losers Part 2 by Harley LaRue. This was the only book I managed to read since the last episode, but what a book it was. If you haven't read The Dare or the first book in the Losers Duet, you should absolutely get on that. These books are a roller coaster of emotion, ridiculously spicy and filled with trauma, self-discovery, and healing. Harley has a gift, and I'm just happy that she's blessing the world with it. Losers Part 2 is a polyamorous bisexual romance with one woman and 4 men, including MF, MM, and group scenes. Please check out the trigger warnings before reading because there are a lot of them. Blurb. Every action has consequences. I made one foolish mistake and ended up with a debt I had only one way to pay, by bowing my head and submitting to the men I swore I hated. But in their dominance, I found catharsis. In the darkness we share, parts of myself were brought to the light. I've been wearing a mask for far too long. Now I'm torn between the future I thought I wanted and a life I once believed was only fantasy. These feelings between us were never just a game. What am I willing to sacrifice? My pride and carefully laid plans? My determination that I can do it all alone? Or my newfound freedom to live without boundaries with the men who turned my world on its head? How much am I willing to give up? Who am I willing to lose? New and recent releases. The Duchess's Designs by Mary Bright. This title released January 11th and is a fantasy OMEGAVERSE Why Choose novella that takes place within the Lost Lines series and takes place after the events of the Guard's Haven, but it's not necessary to read the series in order as each is a standalone within the shared world. It was previously published as The Mended Omega in the charity anthology Not Over You. Blurb. She's been broken for years. Can these 3 finally mend her? Savaged by a feral alpha 4 years ago, once fearless Scylla can't speak around the hulking dominant men, not even the 3 ridiculously handsome ones who have been carefully courting her for months. Too carefully. Flowers and love poems? Please. This seamstress wants knots, nests, and naughtiness. She needs to find her tongue so she can tell them what uses she has for theirs. Prince Naren and his cousins are driving her to desperation. When Scylla's nature finally awakens, her sanity hangs by a thread. Her chosen mates will have one chance to mend her heart before she loses her mind. Next up is Her Monstrous Valentines by Honor St. Jean. This title came out January 10th and is an MFM monster romance novella with light BDSM, dark themes, and a guaranteed HEA. Blurb. I summoned a monster who can only be banished after he makes me feel good. Really good. All I wanted was some tea after a hard day, but the recipe in my grandmother's book turned out to be a spell. 1 minute I'm alone, the next I've summoned a minotaur. The only way to send him back? He has to bring me to a screaming release. When the family's protective elf catches wind of all the noise we're making and comes running, I quickly learn that 3 is not a crowd. Unfortunately, I come from a long line of monster hunters, and while I refuse to participate in the barbaric hunt, my family still practices it religiously. When they find out about my lovers, I'm forced to choose. Find a way to protect them from my family or banish them from the human realm forever. Next up is The Ties That Bind by Celeste Knight. This title came out today, January 17th, and is an MF Mafia second chance hidden baby romance with praise, degradation, and breeding kink. Blurb. Nia. Feeling like I had no other options, I made a deal with the devil. Family is the most important thing, right? Along the way, I met Enzo Renzetti, and my heart knew I should stay away from him. He was gorgeous, dark, but most importantly, dangerous. After one night of passion that would change my life forever, I ran. But fate has a funny way of coming full circle. I'm back in Strathmore, and I know it's inevitable we'll cross paths again. Enzo. My destiny was always to take over my father's criminal empire. I didn't have time for love, especially after being burned once. Nia Mason was everything that I wanted in a woman, gorgeous, determined, and quick-witted with a smart mouth. But after she vanished, I swore off relationships. Years later, she's reappeared, and I haven't decided if I want to destroy her or claim her for myself. Next up is Havoc Killed Her Alpha by Marie McKay. This title came out January 11th and is Marie's debut OMEGAVERSE. It is a why choose enemies to lovers OMEGAVERSE with fated mates. Blurb. Never again will I be that little girl who dreamed of a pack to sweep her off her feet. I'm the Omega who killed my Alpha. The day I found my mates, I thought I'd found my home at last. Instead, I was kept from them and left to suffer. For months I clung to scraps of information, and I fell in love with each of them. Angel, Kai, Caspian, and Bane. But then my worst nightmare came, and I faced it alone. Found beside my Alpha's body, my pack has claimed me at last. But they're too late. Now I'm trapped in their home with them, my mates. But there's no happily ever after, because it won't matter to them if I had a choice or not. The man I killed was their pack brother, and they hate me for what I've done. And it's up to these 4 men to decide my fate. Next up is Archer by Layla James. This title released January 16th and is a why choose bully romance with enemies to lovers, an elite brotherhood, and MM in the polycule. Blurb. Secrets unearthed, promises made, and brotherhood bonds broken. Less than 3 weeks ago, my life flipped on its axis. After infiltrating a world designed for men, my role in the Brotherhood becomes more than I ever dared it could be. I had a mission: find out what happened to my best friend and destroy everyone who was involved with his disappearance. Falling for them was never the plan. But after my worst nightmare became my reality, and the past I thought I'd escaped came knocking at our door, the feelings we shared became something far beyond anything I could have anticipated. Before coming to Hawthorne Hall, I never dreamed I'd find anyone who would care for me. But against all odds, I have 3. Archer, Kingston, Cannon. These brothers are determined to help me unravel the tangled web of deceit and lies that has been spun around their house. As my final test approaches, our progress is stalled at every turn. The justice I seek has never seemed so far out of reach. The truth has 2 faces, one we never saw coming. Next up is Den of Escape by Juniper Cole. This title released January 13th and is an MMM, paranormal why choose romance with a witch, vampire, and demon. It features a broken MC who escaped an abusive relationship, protective fated mates, insta-lust, and tail play. Blurb. Foster can't explain the changes in his body that started when he escaped his abusive ex. Despite the eerie feeling that he's being watched, he forces himself to leave his apartment after a month of hiding. To his surprise, his distracted wandering leads him to the Den, a nightclub unlike any he has ever been to. Calyx has never felt more trapped. With a boss that constantly makes inappropriate comments and magic he can't control, the stress drives him to the Den, a perfect place to lose himself in pleasure. Boaz thought it was going to be another boring night guarding the Hellgate beneath his club, until he spots 2 beautiful men dancing the night away. The moment their scents hit his nose, he knows that everything is about to change. When unexpected dangers shake the foundation of their newfound love, the men must decide how much they're willing to sacrifice to fight for their love and their world. And finally, we have The Warrior in the Shadows by L.V. Lane. This title came out January 14th and is a dark sci-fi why choose OMEGAVERSE romance. You can expect very dark content with mind games, manipulation, violence, and gore, and heroes ranging from sweet to pitch black. It's book 2 in the Girl with the Gray Eyes trilogy, and I will drop a link for book 1 as well so you can read in order. Blurb. An Omega living in a Beta world. Fate sent me to a land where all the Alphas live. I want Garen, the playful alpha and brave warrior who effortlessly rocks my world. I also want Tanis, the serious alpha who kisses me and claims me with words only to send me back to Garen. But Shadowland isn't my home. One day I must leave this place and the men who live here behind. When fate rips me away, will a beta male ever be enough? Then Marcus returns and throws everything into a spin. I don't trust him, and I'm not the only one. As it turns out, I was wrong about the beta. And right about Marcus. Returning to Rymore isn't a choice anymore. We're all trapped out here, and someone wants us dead. That's all for now. You can find all of my books and platforms in the description below, as well as links to all of the books mentioned in today's episode. If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, please do let me know. And if you'd like early access to these, you can join my Patreon where I share them with people as soon as they're ready to roll. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon for another episode. Bye!